What's up, guys, and welcome back to the Flotus Prime Performance YouTube channel. Now in this video we are going to go ahead and start working on that Grand Sport C6. So just a quick update for those who don't know what's going on with this C6. This C6 here is my girlfriend's, and I am actually changing the location of the transmission cooler. I did go ahead and put an aftermarket one whenever I was building it, and it was in the back. And it was working fine when you're down the road cruising, going 60, 70 miles an hour. But once you hit a red light, your stop and go traffic, it would tend to get really high for my liking. So I did go ahead and relocate that to the front so it has constant airflow. And the cool thing about that fan is it does have a electric fan in it. So you can reverse polarities in it, and it can push or it can pull air. So that is really cool on that. But the only thing I have left to do really on that one is run the lines, plumb the lines from the transmission, and they are 6AN lines. I did go ahead and order a Motion Raceworks little adapter for the transmission lines. So those are all going to be 6AN all the way up here to the front. And I need to make one more bracket for the transmission cooler just so it won't be wobbly. So with that being said, I'm gonna go ahead and pull off that bumper. So let me pull off that bumper and pick it up whenever I start making that bracket, and kind of show y'all once that the way the brackets are right now. So let me go ahead and pull it off. So guys, I did go ahead and cut that little bracket, and it does have some rough edges, so I am gonna hit it with the little sandpaper disc. I think it's a sandpaper disc, yeah. And we're just gonna go ahead and knock off all that unnecessary roughness out of it so people won't get cut. And just so y'all see, it is pretty rough. So I am gonna go ahead and sand that off, and then start drilling the holes that I need for the bolts. And then after that, go ahead and mount it up, and hopefully we lose some of that little unstableness that the transmission cooler has right now. So with the bracket cut and cleaned up, we are gonna go ahead and start mounting it on the car. So basically this mount will go there in that bolt to somewhere around here in the crash bar. So it is gonna go mounted something like that. And I am gonna go ahead and twist the actual bracket, make it a little twist, that way it will bolt on nice and neat here. So hopefully that does clean up this little wobble that it has right now. And I'm pretty sure it is, just because right now it is bolted up from opposite corners. So we got one there to that fender bracket, and then this one to the radiator support. So pretty much I am going to go ahead and throw that bracket on and see if it fixes that. If it fixes it, great, I'll go ahead and start plumbing the lines. But if it doesn't, I'll go ahead and start improvising on another way to mount this transmission cooler, so we can lose that nasty wobble that it has. So let me go ahead and get that mounted up, and I'll pick it up if it works. Quick update on the C6 on where I stand on that cooler. I did go ahead and make that bracket. As I said, I did go ahead and give it that little twist. So it does have a bolt and nut in the back, and it did help the sturdiness on it a lot more. And unfortunately, I couldn't make a bracket on this bottom corner, just because you do have the fender well and the fan kind of interfering with one another. So I can't really just bolt it to the plastic and expect the best for it. So I went ahead and just left it the way it is. I've seen some that are put on with zip ties, and they've been racing and stuff like that. So That is exactly where I want it to sit and everything. I know that the bumper is going to clear. That's why it was on in the beginning of the video. I had test fitted it when I first mounted the cooler. So now the tedious part is creating or making those AN fittings from here, the front portion of the car, all the way to the rear. And once I lift up the car, I will go ahead and show y'all where it was previously mounted, or how the things were ran and stuff. So for those, I'm pretty sure it would have worked if we were on dumps, but this car does have a full exhaust all the way out the bumper. So that was the unfortunate part on that, on why it didn't work. So let me go ahead and lift up the car, show y'all where it was previously mounted. And once I show you that, I'll start plumbing those lines and taking measurements and stuff like that of the lines before. Also guys, since I am down here, I am going to give you another perspective on that transmission cooler that we just mounted. And this is the brake duct where the original actual brake duct cooler, or the caliper cooler, would go. But now, as you can see, it is mounted kind of in that direction. So hopefully that air that it pulls, it will kind of just pull through here and still let it circulate properly before, you know, it kind of drowning itself on its own heat, so it can kind of vent out of there. So since we are down here, I am going to show you a little bit. We do have all the vacuum lines for the blow off valve. These are it. And we do have two T-offs because it does have two hop switches that turn on. And I believe it's like 2.5 pounds or 3 pounds, and the other around 4.5. So this does have a ANA dual, or the ANA fuel system kit, two massive Holley pumps there. And I also put some other little safety features that I will go ahead and show you once I lower down the car. But you do have to tap in that 10 AN line and the 6 AN line return. So we did go ahead and route that feed line. It is 6 AN, like I mentioned in the previous clip. This hose is steel braided, and this is the feed line. There it is, and it does go routed through the radiator support up here to the motor. As you guys can see, it is that line, that steel braided line right there, and it comes under the brake reservoir here, the master cylinder, behind the washer fluid tank. So from that point, it does go through the whole rocker panel all the way out. So this does have a dual ANA fuel pump kit, and there are those pumps. You can barely see them. There they are. That's one, and the other's on top. So it does go routed there on top here through the fuel tank, and it does look pretty tight, but the line actually has a lot of slack, which is great. And I did go ahead and mock up the exhaust just to make sure that the hoses were not touching, and you can clearly see they are not. You can probably fit about my whole hand in there over top of the actual hose. So that's really great. We know that we're not going to have any clearance issues with the exhaust anymore. Unfortunately, we did run into an issue, or I did unfortunately run into an issue. That was actually 20 feet of hose, and I expected the 20 feet to be enough to go, or to do both lines, but unfortunately it took around, I would say it's 16.5 feet just to do that. And so I am gonna have to order another set, or my girlfriend's gonna have to order another set of AN lines for the return. And once that return is done, pretty much all what's left to do at that point is just bolt on the bumper again. Or before bolting up the bumper, go ahead and just test drive the car here in the shop back and forth. Make sure we don't have any leaks, pressurize the system. And once we are clear on the leak portion, we can go ahead and drive it in the actual road, or put that bumper back on, go ahead and drive it on the road and see what actual difference there is on the temperatures for the transmission. Now, I am expecting a dramatic change because the transmission cooler in the back, the temps were actually getting up to around 190, and even at some points on a super hot day and a really long red light, they would even reach around 210. So I know that is pretty high for a transmission, and transmissions don't like heat, so that's why I decided to throw it up here in the front. and hopefully that eliminates all our problems of having that overheating issue again. Now, before I do get ahead of myself, this is the power wire for that fan that was ran all the way to the back. That's why it is extremely long. And I did have it ran way tucked in over these headers, but you can just see how much heat they produce. And they did go through that opening on the cover that covers the torque tube all the way to the back. But since now it's in the front, I am going to have to relocate this, and I am going to kind of find my way around it. I kind of did find a way, and I am going to try to route it somewhere through here. Maybe tag along here with the vacuum hoses, or here with the fan, and into that transmission cooler fan there. So another quick thing too, I did do this off camera. I did go ahead and swap the fan, or not swap the fan, but rotated the fan. I flipped it, and with the reverse polarities, it is actually putting the air so much better now. If I actually connect it right now and I throw a napkin or something, it will just suck it right into the radiator, or to the cooler, I mean. And that's exactly what we want. I mean, just imagine all the air that it's going to be getting going down the road, or even at a red light. It is going to be getting a fresh air, since we are taking off we did take off the fog lights from the bumper. So picking up where we left off on the Supercharged C6, I did go ahead and get started on the other transmission light, and I didn't kind of take video of it. I didn't take video of it just because it was going to be a little repetitive. It's just going to be the same content because I routed it the same way as just the return line. So I did go ahead and get started on that. All I have to do is put on the AN fitting for the rear end of the hose, and go ahead and bolt that up back to the actual adapter from Motion Raceworks. Here that is. I did go ahead and cut the line to length that I needed. And there's that Motion Racework block with the 6AN adapters. That's that feed. And this is going to be the return. So I do, like I said, need to go ahead and just put on the adapter that's actually, I believe it's in the front. I honestly don't remember where exactly it is. So now, before I get too ahead of myself on this build, I do need to go ahead and talk about the C6, the maroon one, the torque tube C6. I did show you guys the way the torque tube was for that maroon C6, and the customer went ahead and ordered a new torque tube. Or it wasn't new, just because they don't sell new torque tubes anymore. They only sell rebuild kits, or you can just get a slightly damaged one and go ahead and rebuild it yourself. So they did go ahead and get their hands on a very well looking torque tube. It's spun freely, it is perfect, but they bought it for a 2006. I don't know if I've mentioned what year that car is. That car is actually a 2005. I didn't know this, but 2005s come out with 4L60s or 65s, but they come with the 4-speed transmission as the C5s did in 2004. Now, 2006 comes out with 6L80. They introduced the 6L80 in 2006, and they ordered the torque tube for a 2006. So went ahead and measured them. The torque tube is installed. The only thing I couldn't get bolted up was the subframe itself, because it's actually shorter. The 6L80 torque tubes are shorter by 1.25 inches. I went ahead and measured this one right here from this bolt hole all the way to where it sits on the bell housing. Measures 58.25, and the new torque tube, or the 2006 torque tube, measures 57 flat. So there is 1.25 inch difference in between both torque tubes. So whenever I bolted that one up, it bolted up everything fine. You know, everything's exactly the same, just the length changes. So the subframe was not in their mounting points, and you know, I kind of struggled for a bit. I thought I had it wrong in my end. Went ahead and measured it, and I found out that tragic news. So tough break for that customer. I went ahead and told them, you know, I spoke with them. They were just here, as a matter of fact, a couple minutes ago. And I did talk to them about the solutions that we can, you know, do for them. They went ahead and contacted that same company because they got their torque tube from a salvage yard that was actually very, 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 very good salvage yard over there in Dallas. So they went ahead and talked with them again, and they said that they didn't have any 2005 Corvettes, and they measured all the torque tubes they had in inventory, and they all measured 57. So they actually called them back today. This call that, you know, about the measuring was yesterday. They went ahead and called today again, and they were getting a C5 that they had just bought. Told them to give about a week or so. That way they can take off the torque tube, check it out, maybe if it's still good or if they have to do a rebuild kit on it or whatever. We do have those parts because initially it was going to get rebuilt. The stock or the original torque tube was actually going to get rebuilt, but I saw the housing was all beat up and I just asked them to purchase that new housing or the new torque tube. So lucky for them, that salvage yard is getting another 2005 Corvette. They are going to get it measured. If it measures at 58 and a quarter, they are going to go ahead and go pick that one up. Now going back to the Supercharged C6, all we really have left to do is bolt up that last fitting in the back. Once we get that bolted up, we are going to go ahead and wire the fan. So we do have to reverse polarities on it, which means I do have to connect the negative with the positive and the positive with the negative. That way the span, instead of it spinning to the right, it'll spin to the left. And I don't know if I mentioned it before, I did go ahead and flip the fan just so it can pull air instead of pushing it. Since we do have the airflow coming from the front of the vehicle to the back, you don't want to go fighting against each other and it's just going to cause overheating again. So we are going to go ahead and pull the air. We're going to pull it through all the way to the back and let it vent itself out. So hopefully it stays really cool. Like I said, I am expecting a very dramatic change in the temperatures just because it was running really hot when the transmission cooler was in the back. So y'all can see I do have the bumper for the Supercharged C6 back installed, and that was that final piece of the puzzle. So we did go ahead, just a recap of what I did go ahead and move that transmission cooler from the rear back to the front. And there, I don't know if you guys can see it. They go ahead and wire up that fan as well, that's for the cooler, and kind of readjusted the blow-off valve just so it can push the air straight out the fog light hole. So this was a little tedious job just because I did have to route those lines. That is the worst, or not the worst part, but the hardest part of that. You do have very limited space on Corvettes, so that was the hardest part. But I did get that all situated. I pressure tested the system, turned it on, no leaks, and I am gonna go ahead and test drive it right now. So let me give you a cold start. So guys, it is a couple days after what you just saw with the transmission cooler being installed or relocated, and the car's been running phenomenal. It's been super good. Transmission temps have been really low. Stop and go traffic, we really don't have to worry about it anymore. But pretty much I want to thank y'all for tuning in to yet another video here in the Flores Power and Performance YouTube channel, and I'll see you in the next one. Peace.